Welcome back, guys, to another episode of Under Construction. This is part 3 of a 3-part episode. If you haven't watched part 1 and 2, I suggest you go do that, as it shows you all the lead up to this episode. In the previous episode, you might have seen we prepared the panels by panel beating, doing any of the rust work, any paint stripping, deoxidizing, and getting the skins up to 100% ready to do any of the bodywork. So in this episode, we're going to cover all of the body filler work, all the high fill work, and the final sanding and everything that has to be done to get it ready 100% for paint. So let's get to it. Alright guys, what we've got here is all our gear that we need to start the body filler work. So our onion board, which is where you mix up all your bog and hardener, and then once you're done, you can just peel away and chuck that piece out. These are great. Our applicators, got them in multiple sizes for all your different shapes of panels, etc. The body filler, hardener, and I like to use the latex gloves. I don't like getting the resin and that on my hands. It's quite hard to get off. So, yep. Now we'll start mixing. Guys, when you find yourself in this sort of situation where you've laid on a bit of body filler and then you've got to do another section, like for instance you mixed up a certain amount of body filler, you laid it on and that was all that you mixed, but you've still got other areas to do. Like for instance, we've got to do these areas here where we welded over the holes for the body molds. Let the original one completely dry before you start laying on in the new body filler. The reason being, say you're laying it on here, and you know, say you're laying it on there, and then all of a sudden this isn't 100% dry. What can happen is you can start to lift this area, or it can mix with the other stuff, and because it's a little bit semi-hard, it makes it really sort of messy. So the best thing to do is just to let the first one go completely dry, and then start laying on your other layers wherever you need to lay them on. Okay, so if you can't remember where your dents were, this is the time to give the door a double check and just to see where things are. So just go over it with a ruler, see if there's any high spots, any low spots that might be able to be fixed gently, not with a hammer and dolly. If you haven't done it by now, hammer and dolly work, then it's probably a bit too late. I mean, you can still do it, but you might damage some of the epoxy. So this is looking not too bad. Beautiful. Much better. A common area where you'll find soft dents is around the door handles. So people tend to hold on to the door handles as they close them. I don't know if you can see that gap there. So what basically happens is this whole area where the door handle goes on just all sinks in from people holding the door handle as they close the door. So all that weight gets forced upon this area here, and you end up with the whole thing becoming a dent. See that? I think I can just capture it with the camera. So yeah, we've got to try and get that out. The other areas are where the side mirrors go. You can sometimes, I've pretty much worked this one, yeah, so see that's flat, that's nice. That's because I had to repair that area. But yeah, I'll show you how to get that door handle looking a little bit better. Door handle area anyway. Alright, so you put something behind it, either wood or I tend to use this rubber mallet quite a lot. There's this sort of pocket here which is all nice and strong because it's been bent, and there's another layer there. So you just sort of place it under that, give it a whack up, and see the whole thing starts moving upwards. And use Thor's hammer. Yes, I can pick it up. And then see how that goes. Just one whack at a time, and just keep checking it. Right in this back half here. That was a good one. Yes. Beautiful. Oh, fantastic. And that's it. So don't over whack it or whack it. You know, you just want to hit it once and check, hit it once and check. Good decent hits, but that fixed it. Alright, so after I apply the body filler, I tend to leave them out in the sun for a little bit just to completely cure. The first batch, which is here, you can see the colour difference. I don't know if you can pick that up. See the shade difference? So this one took a little bit longer, so I just put this out in the sun, but it's dry now. But yeah, I just put them out in the sun so they dry a little bit quicker, especially this time of the year as well. And now I'll just bring them out here, put them on the horse. I've got the shade here, so it's nice. Be outside, and sand won't make too much of a mess in the garage too. Alright, let's get sanding. I'm using the speed file here with 40 grit paper, so that'll knock off majority of the top off, and then I'll see how I go and then start going down the grades of sandpaper. It was time to get the big guns out. Okay guys, so after one coat of body filler, we're looking pretty good. This is the worst door of the lot. So this one's the one that's got the most damage, or ended up with the most damage because it warped. So you can see here where it's dark, it hasn't sanded at all. So there are areas where you need a bit more filler. This is a high spot. It's not really a high spot, it's more that this is a dent there. So that's sort of sunken in a bit. So we've got to get that curve happening a bit more. But when you get to the stage where you're hitting it with the machine and you start seeing that, that's when you know you've got to stop. So little high spots like that, that just gives you an indication that you need to lay on a bit more body filler. So this one's ready for its second coat now. All the others are done as well. So I'll start laying on the second coat and take it from there. Another thing to make sure you do, guys, is when you clean out, after you finish sanding, clean out your panel thoroughly with the blower. There's little, I don't know if you can see these little pinholes, just little bubbles and stuff like that from the body filler, the way it just lays on. If you don't blow them out, the body filler does not go in those holes. If the body filler doesn't go in those holes, then they can create simpacks later. Even though you're hitting with a high fill, but the more you can get this perfect, the body filler, straight, flat, no little nicks, anything like that, the better the body filler will go on as well. Okay, so all the skins have been sanded now, as you would have seen. So all the final coats, everything. It took 3 coats, a couple of little touch-ups here and there, so full coats, maybe 3 coats, let's say. So now they're sanded down from 40 grit down to 100 grit and then 240 grit. There's still a few scratch marks here and there, which should get filled up with a high fill. If not, I'll just hit them with the spot putty. But they look pretty good, much straighter than they were. As you can see, you'll be able to tell a lot more once I get the high fill on them. But they're looking good. I'll just give them a clean now with the prep sole and hit them with high fill. Okay, so yesterday I hit all the skins in high fill. As you can see, not looking too bad. There's a few pinholes, see, like that, they've all got to come out. Got to get all them out. So we'll start sanding, we'll start with 240 grit and see where that leaves us. It'll probably lean another coat after this sanding is completed, but we'll get majority of it out. Let's see if I can pick that up. I'm not sure if you can see that. They're little sort of bubbles. Okay, so that's solvent pop and that from the high fill where I tried to lay on a bit too much too quickly in one area. So I need to fill them up. But sometimes laying on another coat of high fill just over the whole panel just to get those is a bit of a waste. So I'll address those and I'll show you how I do them. Alright, so what I do next, what I've done here, I've mixed up, you would have seen, I mixed up some high fill in a little cup, and I've just got a little paintbrush here. And you just put dabs of high fill into those little pinholes that you can see. Now, the torch helps show them up really, really clearly. It creates like a shadow in every little one. So it lets you see them really, really clearly. So if you use a torch like this or some sort of light, that gets directed at a different angle, it shows them up really well. Just put a blob in it, let it sink itself into that hole, that little pinhole, and that's it. And it'll fill all of them up. And you can go back over and sand them again, flat with the And here's one we prepared earlier, as they say. So this one's all been done with the little blobs. I'll give it a sand and see how it turns out. If it needs a little bit more, we'll give it a little bit more. But see, the more bog work that the door has needed, or the panel has needed, the more little tiny pinholes that you might end up with. Anyway, let's get standing. Alright, so we've finished two go-overs, I'm not going to say coats, but the two go-overs of the high fill on all these panels, including the bonnet and the boot. So they're all done. And if you have a look, you can see there's only a few little areas where it's gone down to edge primer on some spots. So you've got to go, if you're sanding your high fill and you're still getting little areas like that, it means you need to do more. So you need to lay on more high fill to get it even straighter. But they're just tiny little rub throughs, so we're, you know, compared to the first go over, it's much, much better. Like there were spots all over the place on the first go over of rubbing back the high fill. Yeah, so that's much, much better now. Like with just little spots showing up like that, you know you're almost there. So what I'm going to do now, instead of laying 3 coats on, I'll just do 2 coats of high fill, and that'll be the last rub back, I'm sure of it. So you can see these doors here are exactly the same, just a couple of little tiny areas where it's gone down to the edge. So a little bit more high fill just to fill in those gaps and get them even straighter than they already are. But you know, tiny little rub throughs down to there. I've etched them again with the pressure pack. So they're good to go. So now I'll give it 2 coats on the whole thing, 400, 600, and we're good for paint. It's our final chance to get the body 100% straight and the shape exactly where it needs to be, especially the body lines. So this one had a lot of damage along the body lines, as you guys saw, where the mold holes had been bashed in, and I had to wall them over. So they've actually created tiny little dents, which actually sinks in the body line a tiny bit as well. So you've got to shape them as best you can. I'll show you how I go about that. get the biggest, longest block you can to do this sort of shape. Always crisscross, so crisscross that way, but also to get rid of ripples, go as long as you can that way like that. Okay, that'll stop any rippling. So you'll probably see some cars, they look pretty straight, and you look really along the side of it and you'll see tiny little sort of, they look like little marks like that in the paint. That's ripples, and that's from people sort of standing that way or just stopping like that, you know. So this sort of creates a bridge and sands over those areas that are creased in like that and creates a nice blend. So your final sort of sand should be in that sort of direction like that, just to get those ripples out once you've got this sort of shape, this curve here, already done. Alright, let's get to it. It'll be 400 grit, by the way. Sorry, almost forgot as well. This is a powder, like a black powder. It basically must be like a toner powder. Comes in a little case like that. I bought this online, and this is a little sponge with a microfiber sort of material on the top of it. So you just give it a bit of a shake, and it transfers that black powder onto here. This is a guide coat, so and then you just lay it on, but absolutely everywhere. And then as you sand, it'll get rid of that guide coat and show you exactly where tiny little imperfections or scratches are, and you can continue sanding until you get them out. You'll probably notice a bit of a mark here. That was me accidentally moving the panels too early when they were still a bit wet, and they nudged each other. So I'll have to sort that out, but won't be too bad. It has on some of the other doors as well, which I've already finished. So just lay this on everywhere. Really good stuff. You don't have to wait for, you know, if you do it with I used to do it with a spray paint can, just with some, you know, acrylic or whatever, just lay it on and then wait for it to dry. But this way you just lay it on, it doesn't become tacky or anything like that, and gets in absolutely everywhere. Really, really good stuff. Plus it saves you a lot of time. You don't have to wait around waiting for the paint to dry before you can get started on sanding. Just put this on and sand and you're good to go. Dunsky. Guys, just another tip, if you're not sure exactly when to start changing your paper over, I find that about 15 to 20 minutes of sanding is usually worn out the paper. So 15 minutes or 20 minutes of constant sanding and it's gone. So the other thing that you'll probably start noticing is it won't build up as much dust and stuff like that. But if there's just another way to see if it's worn out or not is just have a feel of the surface that you're using and the edge where it doesn't get used, and you'll feel the difference. You know, it'll be much smoother once it's worn out on the surface that you're using compared to the edges that don't get used where you just hold the actual paper. But yeah, it's another tip. Okay, so what we're up to here, we're just finalising these panels in the 250 grit sand and the 400 grit sand. So what I've done, once this camera focuses, you can see I've marked out the body line there. Just put like a pencil mark on the body line and on these ones as well. So what that's for is I can tape up to those body line marks and then sand to create a nice crisp body line. So we know that the body lines are nice and straight. Considering these doors had a lot of work that had to be done to them, especially around that body line area where the moulding was, they'll need to be crisped up and straightened because they were all wonky. Alright, I'm just giving it a quick clean just so that when I lay my tape on this skin now, which I've already sanded, it's got something to grab onto because of all the powder and the dust that gets produced from sanding. You'll find that the tape doesn't stick, it just sticks to the dust. So give it a quick clean with Prepsol wax and grease remover. Lay on your tape onto this skin and start sanding this one up to the body line. Okay, so we're on to the last section of the door. What we're going to be doing now is protecting this body line that we sanded already in 400 by masking that up, so that when we sand this skin here, we sand up to that line and not into this body line here and start cutting into it. So we'll just sort of sand along there. That'll all be protected by the masking tape, and we can continue on and get this nice and straight. Then we're pretty much done. We're going to go back to this sanding block. The main reason being, not being such a wide sanding area, it's good when you've got a little bit of a curve, which we have here. So this panel here has a slight curve, as does this, but it's such a big area you can easily cover it with this sanding block. But this one's shorter and tighter. So I tend to use this one. It tends to cover the area a little bit better. You don't get so much sort of stepping and flat spots, and this sands and covers really well, and it's easy to hold in one hand, and so it makes for sanding this sort of skin much easier. So when you get to the area where you've got your body line that's nice and sharp, what I like to do is with the 400, this is going over it with the 400 now. So I've done this skin, I've done that skin there. I just roll over it, just like that. With the 400, just softens it up a little bit. Still leaves it nice and crisp enough that you can see it, it's nice and straight. But it just softens it up. You don't want it too sharp unless you're going show car and you're going for that sort of look. But you know, the rest of the doors and the rest of the panels that have this body line aren't sharp like this. They're not as sharp, so you just got to soften them up just so it all looks unison and all matches. You see, we've got aftermarket guards on the on this car, and you know, they're not like they were from factory, so they're not as sharp as they would like as I would like them to be. So you just got to, you know, make them all the same. Just soften them up just by rolling the pad over it like that. Just sort of creates a nice little round edge, but not too round. And that does the trick. Alright, so all we have left to do now is to 400 just these window frames and make sure that the jam side, the underside's all in 400 as well. And we're done, we're good to go. Alright, so we'll give it a final clean now, just after going over the whole lot with 400, just on a soft sandpaper, the one that's got the foam on the back. So we've done all the jams. 400 is alright for all these areas. This area, you know, doesn't get seen, this area doesn't get seen. If you're really pedantic, you can do this back half here. From where you open the door, you can do that in 600 if you like. You know, wet if you like, but I don't see the point. You know, if it's not a show car or whatever, it's just a neat street car, which is what this is going to be. You can just finish it off in 400, that's fine. It won't show it any of the scratch marks. You just got to make sure that the 400 that you do is thorough and covers all the areas. And that's pretty much it. What we're going to do now, we're just going to give it a final clean, and then we're going to seam seal. So the seams that I'm talking about are those areas there. See here, you can see where the door skin folds over and it leaves that open gap. Now, they do put a seam sealer on from factory, but it's not much. And some of these really old cars, they don't have any at all. So I'm just going to put a little bead along there, just smooth it off with my finger, and at least it stops any water getting trapped in that little area, just in case the old seam sealer has cracked or, you know, there's none there at all, and then you get water being trapped in between these two layers, which is this layer and this layer here. So we'll just seam seal all of them up, and I'll show you how I do it neatly with the masking tape. So as you can see that's a good example there. See the gap? We're going to fill that in. So with the masking tape, you're just creating like a little trench or an area where you only want the seam sealer to go. Then you smooth it out with your fingers or your glove that you're wearing on your hands, so you don't get any other stuff on your hands because it's hard to get off. And you do all that area there, so where the door skin meets the door frame. Once that's all sealed up, then it's all as if it's all one piece, so the water won't get in anyway. There's only one trick to putting this stuff on that I found. Once you put, say, one side of it on like that, smooth it off real quick and get that tape off and smooth it off again. The tape just leaves a little bit of like a rolled edge sometimes on some areas where it's got excess seam sealer, but you want to get it done quickly and then move on to the next stuff. Don't try and do all this. By the time you get to there, it's skinned here and it won't lay on smoothly and neatly. Doesn't need very much on these little areas here, so don't overdo it. It just becomes messy, and you're wasting a lot of seam sealer also, so just put on a little bit. Where you've noticed you've got a little bit more gaps, of course, put on a bit more, so it gets right in there. When you smooth it off, you'll see clearly if you've created that seal that you're after. And just go over it again, just to get those lips down, the little lips that gets created by the masking tape. They're not much, but it smooths them down. If you want it to look even neater later, what you can do, I found with a Scotch-Brite, it gets those little rolled sort of lips off, because they sort of sit up a little bit. It just gets them off, it leaves everything else, and it ends up really neat. You can just give it, just a sand over with the Scotch-Brite, and it just gets those little areas off. Once it's completely dry, obviously. So let's continue on. All done. So it's all covered up all the way along. Neat. Both ways, everywhere. So that just gets painted over the top and done. Okay, so all that's left now is these little rub throughs. Just give them a little coating with edge primer. Just until the day comes where you have to wet sand. The particular painter that we're going to be using for this car, he likes to have the panels wet sanded the day before going to paint, so they're fresh, as he says. That gives you the least chance of any contaminants affecting the paint. So you give them that final wet rub in 800 or 600, depending on what paint you're going to be using, before the car goes to the booth, and it's all fresh, ready to go, no contaminants, nothing on the panels that might affect the final outcome of the paint. So we're just going to etch these little rub throughs up, which show little sections of bare metal, and that'll protect it until that day comes. few things to remember. Buy a lot of sandpaper. You will go through tons and tons and tons of sandpaper, believe me. Buy all sorts of grades from 40, say 40, 100, 240, 400, and then your 800. Buy them in all the size and shapes that you need. So your normal sort of A4 size paper and your speed file papers as well. Just get the roughest for those, get the 40s and the 80s. As you go along with your sanding, remember to always sand, look and feel. So always feel your panel as you're sanding. It gives you a guide of where you're going well, where you're going bad, or where it needs more work or where it needs less. Look at it, it'll give you a guide as you start seeing things. The block will always guide you. You know, you'll start getting high spots in some spots, or you'll get, you know, some areas that don't get sanded at all. That means they need to be filled in, or other areas need sanding more. So always guide yourself from these things, from looking, sanding and feeling, and that'll keep you on the right track. Make sure you do every step properly. So if you're doing body filler work, make sure that that is the best you can get it. Okay, so don't move on to the next stage until you've got all your body filler work as best as you can get it. So don't take shortcuts. It'll make for a better finish in the end. And also doesn't mean that you have to take a step backwards. Okay, so you've done your body filler work, next is your high fill. Like I said, make sure that that previous step was done 100% and as best as you can get it, as straight as you think you have gotten it, to go on to your next step. So you're moving on to your high fill, and that'll take less work if your previous job, your previous step was done properly. Another quick tip, always mix your body filler thoroughly. So make sure that all the colour and everything is even all the way through it. There's no like dark bits or light bits. It's mixed 100%. When you're spraying your high fill, use a 1.8mm tip. It helps a lot. Don't use a 1.4, that's only for painting. So use a 1.8mm tip. I haven't tried a 2.4 yet, but I'm sure it'll probably lay on even more, but I'm not sure how ripply or peely it'll be. So I use a 1.8. It gets a lot of material on there. It only takes a few coats and it gets it on nice. Be ready for a lot of work. I know it doesn't look like much in the video. You just see somebody sanding a little bit here and doing a little bit of painting there and laying on a little bit of bog, and it doesn't look like much. It took a long time. It takes quite a while. To get it 100% or as best as you can get it, it takes a lot of work. Sanding blocks. They're all pretty much the same thing, but as you can see, different sizes. If you're not using all these different sizes, all these different shapes of sanding blocks, and I've got 8 ton. I've got heaps of them. They're all in different shapes, different widths, different lengths, you name it. If you're not using all of them when you're doing your shaping and sanding, you're not going to get the right job. Okay, so make sure you use a sanding block. Don't orbital everything. I've seen so many people just orbital. You're not going to get your panels straight that way by using everything with orbital. Orbitals for your final stages. Okay, so you can use an orbital when you're just about to go to paint, okay, and you want an 800, the whole car, so that all you're doing is getting scratch marks out. So you're getting your 400 marks out, that's it. You're not shaping at 400, you're not shaping at 600 or 800. You're just smoothing off scratch marks. When you're using sanding blocks, it's when you're shaping. You're still shaping panels and getting final curvatures and lines of the car. If you're not using blocks to do that, you will not get it. So the next step after this is just to wet sand the whole car, all the high fill to be wet sanded in 800 because we're going for a metallic paint. So we're going 800 wet and then straight away paint and we're done. But we'll be showing that step on the day that we go to paint or when we're at that stage when we're just about to go to paint. It's the end of the year here at the moment, so painters aren't open, so we're waiting for the start of the new year and then we'll get the car 100% ready and send it off to paint.
Oh! Take a step back, boy!
Did you see it? Did you see it?
I saw that.
That was mad.
That's sick.
Anyway guys, that's just a little sneaky peek of the MK2 Escort getting ready for paint.
It's gonna be mad. So coming soon, we're gonna have more of my super build, the model car. we're up to episode 5 and we're going to start doing engine bay work and engine work, and we're going to put the engine into the bay, so it's going to be pretty sick. Stay tuned for that. It's coming to a screen near you on Tough Garage, so enjoy.
We'll also introduce you to Ellie's Mark II Escort, which has been seen little bits and pieces on the under construction videos, but we'll start showing you a series of videos on that, which goes through introduction of the car and its history and its story and how we've gone along with the actual build itself. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed that video of under construction.
Please like, subscribe, leave a comment and hit that bell for video notifications. Now I'm going to head off.